China is at its dirty games again, and this time again provoking India. They put forth a map, officially. But what was very noticeable and clearly was using Indian territory, marking on its map as its own. Remember, there's a crucial G20 summit that's just around the corner. The map, however, of China attempts to show Indian territory and parts of Arunachal Pradesh specifically as part of China. There was a handshake at the BRICS meeting in Johannesburg, and there were very clear questions and points that were mentioned to Xi Jinping by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But now, as is now evident, that India is surrounded by two neighbours who will only create trouble for our country. If there is Pakistan, there is also China, and this time they are trying to provoke us, not just on the ground, but also with this territorial interference in their map. Our foreign affairs editor Geeta Mohan joins me for the latest on that. Geeta, good morning. This is clearly China at it again and trying to unnecessarily provoke India, but can you give us details of what exactly is in the map?
Well, it is an updation that China does on a regular basis, and this time around, like they have done in the past, they have put out the 2023 edition of the map, which clearly shows Indian territories of Arunachal Pradesh as also Aksai Chin as part of Chinese territory. And this comes just days ahead of the G20 summit. In itself is a provocation. And we will again have to wait and see how the China-India talks on the already ongoing tensions at the border really go ahead of President Xi Jinping's visit to India. So this is a contentious issue, but India stands very clear, Pooja, that these areas that China marks as its own are integral to India. They're an integral part of India, and India's territorial sovereignty and integrity will have to be respected.
And Geeta, I noticed that it's not just about India. They've tried to even include Taiwan as China, while Taiwan has categorically mentioned itself as an independent country. And it's crucial. They have their own forces. They have their own, whether it's about technology and trying to develop themselves, that they have considered themselves always separate from China. But China putting not only Taiwan, but parts of Arunachal Pradesh, Ladakh, all of that in their territory.
Well, that's right. Again, these are claims that China has made for years. And the 2023 edition of the latest edition of the map remains unchanged in many ways, Pooja. They continue to maintain and claim territories that are not theirs, and that they've been having contentions with various countries, including Taiwan, many parts of the South China Sea, where island nations and countries have had problems with China, whether it is the Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, and many, many more. But the fact is that for India, this is going to remain a major contentious issue between the two countries.
Geeta, I request you to please stay on with me, because this is also ahead of the G20 summit. Joining me now is India Today's managing editor Gaurav Sawant on the phone line. Gaurav, good morning. This is China's clear provocation. You know, not only showing parts of India as its own, but also Bhutan, also Taiwan. This is deliberate bullying that we can see on part of China.
Pooja, cartographic aggression has been part of China's tactics for quite some time. They have done this in the past, and this is how they manufacture post-truth. They release such maps, and then they claim that this is part of maps that were released in so-and-so year, when negotiations continue for decades. So, cartographic aggression is something that India has lived with and countered effectively. These are China's claims. This doesn't become facts on ground. And the fact that you have 50,000 troops deployed on ground post-2020 is the message that the Narendra Modi government is sending out, that Chinese salami slicing of Indian territory, is no longer acceptable. That's exactly why, whether it's in Arunachal Pradesh or in North Sikkim or in the middle sector in Barahoti or in eastern Ladakh, known as the western sector, you have a very large number of troops that are deployed on ground. And this actually is also, imposing costs on China. The fact that Chinese are losing lives, their soldiers are dying along the line of actual control.
Absolutely.
They are not used to living in these hostile conditions. But then, given the fact that India has deployed troops in such large numbers and has built up in a big way, has compelled China to equally build up and remain deployed. Now it remains to be seen whether ahead of G20 or post G20, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping are able to find a solution. So, China set the ball rolling. It's for China to roll back first.
Also, at this point, of course, Taiwan and Bhutan maybe not as strong or a rising power as India is. But Gaurav, do you think this is also a message to the world to unite against what China has been up to, specifically in Asia, in the subcontinent, constantly trying to provoke? And it is a reminder for nations to know to not accept and take this bullying anymore.
You brilliantly put. You're absolutely right. Taiwan resists China extensively because for Taiwan, it's an issue of survival. We were reporting from on ground. Geeta Mohan and I were reporting from Taiwan. And we've seen Taiwan adopts a strategy which is called the porcupine defense. Porcupine defense means in case China attacks, China will be stung very extensively. It will have to deal with the missile bases that have come up in multiple islands all around Taiwan. And of course, then Taiwan also expects that United States and other countries will then come in to Taiwan's help. That's point one. Point two, the world has already started seeing China's expansionist behavior and their wolf warrior diplomacy. And even in the latest BRICS summit, if you notice, the Chinese president had nothing new to offer to African countries, and they're all very wary of Chinese predator tactics. They give soft loans and then they take away land like they've done with Pakistan and with Sri Lanka and with several other countries. So democracies are now very wary of China. The United States has woken up to an extent. Remains to be seen whether Europe wakes up and the world unites to checkmate an expansionist China.
That's true. India has constantly been raising these concerns, but finally perhaps other nations also realizing the sort of aggression that China is involved in. I appreciate Gaurav Sawant, Geeta Mohan for joining us and giving us a perspective on what China has done via these maps. As Gaurav was also telling us, this is a sort of information warfare, sort of aggression that China attempts beyond the ground as well.